Hi, my name is Alexandra Taylor.
And I'm Amy Lein, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We're honored to be presenting to you at the Teacher Educators for Children with Behavioral Disorders Conference.
We know that classroom management is an ongoing struggle in many classrooms. For early career teachers, this ongoing struggle can have negative effects on the teaching happening within the classroom. Specifically, 43% of teachers even report that student behavior interfered with their teaching. Even more challenging is teaching students with emotional disturbances, also commonly referred to as emotional and behavioral disorders or emotional disabilities. In today's presentation, we will begin with an overview of students diagnosed with emotional disturbances. We will then introduce the CDC's newly adopted high leverage practices, commonly referred to as HLPs, for explicitly teaching critical social skills. We will take this information and present ways that social skills instruction can be integrated into core content areas within an inclusive setting. With this, our aim is not only to benefit students with ED, but also to give teachers better ways in managing classroom behaviors.
For starters, we'll provide you with an overview of students diagnosed with emotional disturbances. The federal definition of emotional disturbance provided by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act states that emotional disturbance is characterized by one or more of the following characteristics displayed over a long period of time and to a marked degree that adversely affects educational performance. The inability to learn not related to other factors, the inability to build or maintain satisfactory peer or teacher relationships, inappropriate feelings or behavior under normal conditions, a general pervasive mood of happiness or depression, a tendency to develop physical symptoms or fears associated with school or personal problems. And this definition does not apply to children who are socially maladjusted unless they have an emotional disturbance. As a note, this definition does include schizophrenia. We have added emphasis to point out terms that are problematic. For example, inability as a word implies that the trait is not malleable, and inappropriate is an awfully vague term. So, in response to concerns over the federal definition, the Council for Children with Behavioral Disorders drafted a new definition which helps clarify inappropriate and removed the term inability. So, under the CCBD, the definition is behavioral or emotional responses so different from appropriate age, cultural, or ethnic norms that they adversely affect educational performance, including academic, social, vocational, or personal skills. This is more than temporary and more than an expected response to stress. And it is consistently exhibited in two different settings, at least one of which is school-related. Furthermore, they are unresponsive to direct intervention in the general education setting.
Characteristics of students with ED can be broken down into behavioral and academic characteristics. For behavioral characteristics, students show significant difficulties controlling their emotions, and they may present many undesirable behaviors. It is important to note that the main behavior that manifests in students with ED is noncompliance. Other behaviors revolve around students being noncompliant, such as aggression, self-injurious behavior, and withdrawal. These behaviors can be both external or internal. For the academic characteristics, students typically have low GPA, they're more than years below grade level, and they have difficulty passing competency exams. The academic difficulties stem from missing valuable teaching time in the classroom.
It is estimated that about 6% of students within the age range 3 to 21 have been diagnosed with emotional disturbance, while other categories of disabilities have significantly higher prevalent rates. For example, learning disabilities, It is important to note that there's a comorbidity of behavioral symptoms in students diagnosed with other disabilities. For example, students with learning disabilities often experience frustration, which can result in inattentiveness and acting out. And students with speech and language impairments also experience frustration when attempting to communicate in daily circumstances, which can be challenging. Furthermore, if peers tease those with speech impairments, bullying and fighting back can occur, which are clear disruptions. Lastly, pre-service teachers in many states are certified to teach students with a range of mild to moderate special needs, which include both learning and behavioral disorders.
In the 2016-17 school year, fewer than half of the students diagnosed with ED spent most of the day in the general education classroom. In comparison, over 60% of students with disabilities spend at least 80% of their school day receiving instruction in an inclusive general education classroom. While about 3% of students with disabilities overall were in separate schools, 13% of students with emotional disturbances were. These are both concerning statistics because our goal is to educate students in their least restrictive environment. If we can help students with ED better manage their behaviors, we will see more success with students educated in the general education inclusive setting.
We know that students diagnosed with emotional disturbance manifest significant challenges in maintaining positive peer relationships, and they experience frequent conflicts with both teachers and parents. As such, these students' lives are negatively impacted both in and outside of school. In school, mainly the concerns involve missed instruction, exclusionary discipline, and limited social opportunities, which we know to be critical to development. Now, in the home and community, the deficits can result in coercive relationships, disengagement from others, and a lack of a social support network.
So, specific to students diagnosed with emotional disturbances, these individuals experience the least favorable outcomes of any group of individuals with disabilities. Specifically, 80% of students diagnosed with ED drop out of high school, they experience a lower percentage of employment, have trouble maintaining a job, and these individuals are more likely to be arrested and or incarcerated, and that they frequently require direct instruction in social skills.
Next, we'll discuss the new high leverage practices for inclusive classrooms. At the core, the high leverage practices, or HLPs, are essential to understand to promote effective classroom teaching. They're fundamental for supporting all students and their learning. The HLPs are research-based, they're applicable across the curriculum, and they're used frequently in classrooms. Our particular presentation focuses on the area of social, emotional, behavioral high leverage practices.
HLP 9 focuses on teaching social skills. Authors McDaniel, Zahir, and Scott state the ability to successfully interact with others and to navigate difficult social interactions in a manner that predicts continued success is the essence of social skills. So, what are social skills? Broadly speaking, social skills encompass varying categories of skills that are seen as critical to navigating social situations. And remember, these social situations are both at home and in a school setting. Major categories of social skills include communication, problem solving, resolving conflict, and working cooperatively.
It is critical that students with emotional disturbance receive explicit instructions in social skills, and that instruction is both intensive and individualized. In addition, it is important that students have a chance to repeatedly practice these social skills across different settings in order for them to maintain and build fluency, which is really the key.
If students with ED are learning social skills in isolation, so such as a resource room or a small group intervention, the learned skills may not be systematically practiced or reinforced in an inclusive setting. And as a result, these students' social competence is insufficient. A possible solution is to practice the skills learned in the natural setting, which we will refer to as the inclusive classroom.
The challenge herein is fitting in additional separate lessons on social skills in the classroom when content area standards are also needing to be met. If we can integrate social skills instruction into content area instruction, the efficiency of instruction will be greatly increased. Furthermore, when social skills are integrated into the context of regular content area classes, students are better able to generalize those social skills into the settings where they will need to use them.
How can we help students practice social skills in a natural setting? By teaching and allowing students to practice social skills across curricular classes. We have suggested a model that is very similar to how you would teach any other curriculum area. This follows the three broad planning considerations: the teaching component, which focuses on I do, the modeling, focusing on we do, and the practice, which focuses on you do. Our suggestion is for teachers to intentionally plan in an integrated fashion by incorporating both academic and social skills lessons.
Learning objectives tend to target an academic skill or concept as the primary skill being taught. Within the planning of your lessons, you can intentionally integrate social skills because within every content area standard exist prerequisite social skills. Furthermore, you must think about what are the common social skills deficits of my students, what are their common IEP goals. In this way, your primary focus would be on the academic skills with a secondary focus on the social skills. Or, conversely, you can go the other direction to focus primarily on social skills and then integrate a secondary focus on particular academic content area.
Here are some examples of lesson planning integration. For example, a focus for an academic skill could be on students writing uppercase letters. The intentional social skill that we would be teaching is that students will share materials during alternating rotations, with the skill focus on working cooperatively. The activity is that students would take turns with their partner writing uppercase letters on a shared dry erase board.
Within our institution's required lesson plan template, we have inserted intentional spaces to encourage students to think about social skills integration. The arrows that I have added here point out that while we asked them already about content knowledge, the academic skills, concepts, and processes, we simply added a second column asking them to consider social skills, concepts, and processes still within that particular content area knowledge. Below that, we have indicated with the arrow that we added a social skills, concepts, processes, and abilities category into the section that asks about student characteristics. And it usually asks just about their academic, but we've simply just added a second column.
And just as Amy stated, we've also added into our learning targets. So our goal is for our students to be intentional about not only designing academic learning targets, but directly thinking about the social skills that they will teach during their lesson as well.
Following up again, we simply added another row here. We added it to the existing template where it looks at assessment. As a note, we stress to our students that the formative assessments, whether they be for academic or social, can include observational notes on student performance and behavior, so long as they include specific criteria and rubrics, which is listed here under the formative assessment item, saying list item types below, attach the actual items and/or scoring rubric.
As we come to the closure of our presentation, we have some questions that we encourage you to ponder. If you are joining today as a special education teacher or a pre-service teaching candidate, we would like you to think about, with your current class of students, what are the top 3 social skills that need to be explicitly taught? The second question, What is one intentional way that you will begin to integrate social skills instruction into your core content teaching?
And then these last two questions are aimed more at the institutes of higher ed, training our pre-service teachers. The first question is to ask yourself, how often is classroom management one of the main concerns expressed by the cooperating or supervising teachers regarding your pre-service teachers' skills? And then what specific concerns about classroom management have been raised? The second one is to consider what we did with our lesson plan template and ask yourself, where is at least one area in your program where you can easily make a small change to emphasize embedded social skills?
If you have questions, please feel free to contact Amy or I about our presentation. We thank you so much for joining us and hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you. Yes, and our references are on the last slide.